The president of Harvard has finally resigned, and not because she defended very extremist statements from far left extremists, but because finally, after I think like 50 plus accusations of plagiarism, she had no choice. Now, I think what we're seeing here is not acceptance that she did something wrong, but it's recognition that the woke pushed too far and we're experiencing too much collateral damage. But it's a good sign. Wokeness is on the way out. It's a fact. It's a reality. From the Bud Light boycott, Target boycott, and now the resignations of more than one university president. We are seeing academics, real academics, people like, individuals on social media who actually want to uphold the values of meritocracy, celebrating the reclamation of standards in universities. Now, for the longest time, there's been a debate. Many people have argued with me that the universities are the cause of the rise of wokeness. That is not correct. They are a massive component. They are the physical world hub. But the main component, I believe, is actually social media, which is why we see the rise of wokeness at the exact same time in every single country. Now, I know, they're going to say, not every single country. What I mean is, most countries experienced a spike in their media in terms like white privilege, racism, diversity, etc. And the reality was social media algorithms, a combination of two things. One, first, these companies were heavily incentivized monetarily because rage bait makes money. And the public popular narrative is racism bad. Yeah, we all agree on that. And so when you make a video or an article about something racist and say, ooh, I'm so angry about it, well, sure enough, you get clicks. But sure enough, then the monetary incentive is there. Sure enough, then you build a massive base of people seeking out any kind of injustice to pile on. Then people start targeting these companies saying, you need to do something about this. Then the companies start changing their rules. And then we get the expansion of affirmative action, diversity hires, etc. What we are seeing now with the resignation of Harvard's president is absolutely incredible. It shows you just how deep the rot has gone. There's an article from the Associated Press titled, Harvard President's Resignation Highlights New Conservative Weapon Against Colleges, Plagiarism. Let me just pause real quick. Plagiarism has always been a serious academic no-no. Plagiarism in media, a serious academic no-no. Let me clarify something for you. Plagiarism isn't just copy and pasting someone else's work. If you take a substantive portion of someone's writing and like alter a word here or there, you're still plagiarizing. You can condense the ideas down in your own words, but it's fairly obvious when the structure of the paragraph, minus the adjectives, follows the exact same pattern. Meaning, all you did was copy and paste someone else's work. It's a big no-no. In fact, in journalism, it's a copyright infringement. But this is what the Associated Press writes. The new conservative weapon against colleges. In fact, in the article, one of the funniest things I've ever read, they go on to say that scalping is actually a, do they have the scalping? Yeah, they said scalping was a gruesome practice by white people targeting Native Americans. Holy crap. You gotta be kidding me. Several hundred academics signed letters defending Dr. Gay, that's her name, at Harvard, despite the fact we know she has no merit. She has done nothing to warrant this position. And now we've got posts from many of these progressives saying you couldn't even keep a black woman president for a year, blah, blah, blah. It's one of the shortest tenures in history at the university. The reality is this. Woke is a cult, and this proves it. Please do us all the favor and share this story. You can share this video. That helps the work we do here at timcast.com. Share this article and what I'm about to show you. Go to your friends and family members who pretend to be woke or are scared to speak up and say, take a look at this and justify it. A new weapon against colleges? Plagiarism? It's against the rules. It's an academic violation. You see, woke people were trying to fly under the radar. We knew this, those that were paying attention, that they were lying, cheating, and stealing. And now that she's gotten caught in their panic, it's the best they could do. But you need to understand this, my friends. What I am showing you here is not just to say that the universities are bad. This is to show you the press is bad. Now, there are many mainstream publications that called out Harvard's president's plagiarism, accusations of, for which there are numerous dozens of examples. Bravo to them. And there are still many outlets that are attacking those who exposed this malfeasance. The AP, for instance. This is not news. But, according to NewsGuard, the Associated Press is cream of the crop, best of the best. They got a 95 out of 100. Man, they must be really good. I think the only reason they don't get it is some technicality. They don't get 100. Let me show you this story, and then we'll show you the breakdown. What I want you all to understand with this takeaway is, though it may be dark in the days ahead, we are winning. Those who believe in American values, those who believe in this country's founding principles, the good ones, not the bad ones, who seek to uphold meritocracy, individual responsibility, personal accountability, we're winning. Thank you. Finally. It really bums me out that we even got to this point, but there are too many cowards in this country. But you know what? That's a reality of life. There are many cowards. I want to give a shout out to Dave Chappelle, certainly a man who is not a coward. After he was attacked ruthlessly and relentlessly by far left extremists over his jokes, you know what he does? He opens his new comedy special with this. It is a masterpiece. I'm sorry. His opening story about Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey is one of the greatest comedic bits ever done. This 7-minute long story that ends with a punchline of a single sentence. Masterfully done. I know. A lot of jokes have simple punchlines, but the turnaround is so masterful. Dave Chappelle, the greatest of all time. Dave Chappelle standing up to a DC liberal crowd and saying this joke about Andy Kaufman, Jim Carrey, and how he feels around trans people to thunderous applause in the audience. It's a signal. Dave Chappelle gave a signal to the average person. It's okay to laugh at absurdity. And now, for all these people that are scared to speak up or who knew what they were advocating for is wrong, y'all are in deep, deep trouble. Not every single person who is scared to speak up. Many of these people will now start saying, okay, it's safe. I can come out. Sad, but at least these people are not going to start speaking up. But there are many people, like, Sam Harris, for instance, who we know, he knows he's on the wrong side of this. But he was scared. And he thought he was on the right side of history by defending the cult. And now here he is, frantic and panicked, attacking Elon Musk. And he's on no one's side. No one likes him now. He thought as the die was rolling, it was going to come out for the woke. And then what happened? They rolled a 7. We win. Depending on where you are on the point, somebody was going to roll. 7 could be good or bad. But my point is this. So they threw the dice and Sam Harris went, I'm going to double down on woke crap and psychotic garbage. And we all called him out. Why? Because we are men of principle. We are, and ladies, of course. And here we are. Let me show you some of these examples, and let's talk about the great victory that we see today at the beginning of 2024. It may be that as we enter this year, it will be tumultuous. There may be conflict, crisis, but it also may be the sad reality for the woke they've lost. It may be, I'm going to say it, we do not see escalation of this conflict. It may be that before it gets to that darkness, enough people turn things around. Joe Biden is unceremoniously the loser in the 2024 election. Donald Trump wins, and we avert the worst case scenario. Then Trump wins, comes in, cleans up the corruption. It may be that this is just a dark time that we walk peacefully through, and I hope so. Here's the story from the AP. Harvard's president's resignation highlights new conservative weapon against colleges, plagiarism. I love it. The downfall of Harvard's president has elevated the threat of unearthing plagiarism, a cardinal sin in academia, and a possible new weapon in conservative attacks on higher education. You mean to tell me the AP is saying there are many instances of plagiarism uncovered? It should be their job as journalists to expose malfeasance. You know, the old saying was, journalists should comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, but not when it comes to their political allies, I suppose. Claudine Gay's resignation Tuesday followed weeks of mounting accusations that she lifted language from other scholars in her doctoral dissertation and journal articles. The allegations surfaced amid backlash over her congressional testimony. The plagiarism allegations came not from her academic peers, but from her political foes, led by conservatives who sought to oust Gay. Yes, but some of these are academic personalities. Here's the issue. When you get prominent academic personalities who are opposed to wokeness, they say you're not her academic peer. Why? Because you have to be in the cult to be a peer. If you're an academic personality, a professor, or someone who works in the university system, Dr. James Lindsay, for instance, they'll say, you're a conservative. It's political. James Lindsay doesn't like conservatives. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because they are a cult, but they're losing. I love this. They say her detractors charged that Gay, who has a PhD in government, was a professor at Harvard and Stanford, and headed Harvard's largest division before being promoted, got the top job in large part because she is a black woman. That is a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. It's kind of wild that they're like, that's not why it happened. What do you mean? Like that's diversity played a huge role in the hiring of not just her, but many other individuals. These individuals, these academics have been saying this explicitly. They wanted people of color and women, et cetera, et cetera. So, of course, that was the reason. I love this. You ready for this? Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist who helped orchestrate the effort, celebrated her departure as a win in his campaign against elite institutions of higher education. On X, he wrote "scalped," as if Gay was a trophy of violence, invoking a gruesome practice taken up by white colonists who sought to eradicate Native Americans. Dude, anybody with a cursory understanding of history knows that scalping was not a gruesome practice of white colonists seeking to eradicate Native Americans. Now, of course, I believe it's fair to say there were many individuals who probably and wrongly believe that scalping is a unique thing among Native Americans. No, I don't think, I believe there's probably a lot of people who think Native Americans predominantly did the scalping. Scalping is a standard act of war that's been around for thousands of years, and it's irrespective of culture or race. Why? There were Vikings, Nordics who scalped. And before the colonists ever arrived, there was a mass scalping grave taken upon by Native Americans. We know that Native Americans engaged in scalping. A lot of people did. It was a gruesome act meant to terrify. Let me see if I can pull this up. Do I have this Britannica here? Ah, yes, scalping, a rite of warfare, removal of part of the scalp with hair attached from the enemy's head. Ooh. It indicates that many cultures have engaged in the removal of body parts of their enemies. Most frequently, they're used as trophies or proofs of valor, blah, 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 blah. They go to mention that Herodotus, the Greek, and Scythian warriors were required to deliver enemy scalps. Oh, was that an attack on Native Americans? In the 14th century, archaeological evidence was found that in the 14th century, a mass grave containing nearly 500 victims with evidence of scalping was found near Crow Creek, South Dakota. The conflict that's killed these individuals is thought to have been precipitated by a prolonged drought. Do you understand what that means, my friends? Yeah, the 13th century white European colonists had not yet arrived. I suppose you could argue that Leif Erikson made it to Newfoundland, but it's not like they expanded westward. It wasn't until we famously talk about Christopher Columbus arriving in the Bahamas, followed by the period of European colonization, which was the end of the 15th century. The 14th century, so we're talking potentially, I think it's fair to say, over 100 years before. But you see what the AP does. It's wonderful to see the woke fail. Here we go. The AP, they removed the community notes in real time. Did you just see that disappear? Harvard president's resignation highlights a new conservative weapon against colleges, plagiarism. You know what's wild about this? The Babylon Bee could have written this exact headline as a satire article. Seriously. Because plagiarism is something wrong. And look how they write it. Let's take a walk through commentary. Chris Rufus says the funniest outcome of the Claudine Gay saga is all of the academics coming out in defense of plagiarism and all of the journalists coming out against journalism, dutiful to the regime until the bitter end. I know it, Chris. When 2017, I wonder how this happens. I really do. I worked for Vice in 2013 into 2014. I ended up leaving and joined a company called Fusion. And for Fusion, I did field reporting on a bunch of stories. It was an interesting time, to say the least. And somehow, I escaped these institutions without becoming woke. What ends up happening is, after I leave Fusion, within a few months, I think, Donald Trump says, "Did you see what they said happened last night in Sweden?" And all of a sudden, all these people were like, "What happened last night in Sweden?" Nothing happened last night in Sweden. Well, what Trump was referring to was last night on Fox News, they played a segment about Sweden and the high crime. Trump was correct. But they all said nothing happened last night. And so all of a sudden, this big conversation erupted on social media between conservatives and the woke. And they were talking about the high crime rate in Sweden. Paul Joseph Watson said, "I'll pay $2,000 to any journalist who spends a weekend in Sweden." And so I DM'd him. I was like, "I'll do it." And he was like, "To be honest, bro, I was taking the piss, but sure, okay, why not?" He donates $2,000 to my GoFundMe, raising money to go and do this reporting from Sweden. I got DMs from my former colleagues at Vice News, people I had thought were my friends who I had done field reporting with. And they said, "Don't go." I was like, "Well, what do you mean, don't go?" Yeah, don't. Trump's a liar. And I was like, "Great, I'll prove he lied. That's the point." And they're like, "No, don't go." Multiple individuals from Vice contacted me telling me not to do the journalism. And I'm just like, I don't understand, man. You think Trump's lying? I'm going to go prove it. And it's not about whether Trump was lying. It was about whether these reports were true. And I mostly came back with a moderate centrist take. Yeah, crime was rising, but it's nowhere near as bad as a lot of people thought it was, but it was going up. I even had the Huffington Post write a fairly good piece about my coverage. But this is where it was all just picking up. This was 2016 into 2017. Wokeness was on the rise, and it really got big around 2020. I think that's the peak. But it was wild for me to have these journalists tell me not to do journalism. And I'm like, guys, I went with this guy to Ukraine. I'm like, dude, I went with you guys to these countries to document these things. Why would I all of a sudden stop doing it? Crazy. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like if I stayed at Vice. And I was like, whoa, you see this big story about Sweden? We should go and cover it. No, you shouldn't go. What do you mean? I went to Thailand. I went to Turkey. I went to Brazil. I went to Morocco. I went to all these places. No, don't do it. I would have probably quit on the spot. You know what's fascinating is when Ferguson happened, I said, we've got to get down there and cover this. This is huge. I mean, the Michael Brown riots were huge. And they told me, wait, we'll see. So you know what I did? I bought my own plane ticket and I went down there. I went down there with Casey Neistat. Boy, was Vice pissed. What are you doing? And I was like, you know what I told? I was like, guys, you will not hold me back. I'm going to do the reporting. And they did not want me to go. And this actually was the end of my time at Vice. Because I got to tell you, man, the finale of what happened with my tenure at Vice, I don't know if tenure is the right word. The finale was them saying, come back. The reporting is done. There was a conflict between me and some other reporters, and I said, so be it. They said, we don't want to deal with you guys bickering and fighting, so just come. And I said, whatever. I'm done with this. Y'all have been a thorn in my side. Let me tell you my mentality, the way I view things. I do not hold this view of being subordinate and working for someone else. I just don't. I hold this view of an exchange, a mutual exchange, or a deal between parties. I went to Vice and I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a culture war in entrepreneurship because I really want to talk about business and mentality. But I told them, look, here's what I need. Can you guys provide me this? Because if you provide me this, I'll give you something you need. Trade. You know, if I make bread and a guy comes to my house and says he'll give me money for the bread, I don't work for him. I say, buddy, I can kick you out at any point. But there are many people who have the mentality that they're subordinate and must just do what they're told. Nah, you ain't got no leverage over me. I went to Vice and I said, look, guys, here's what I'm looking for. I need these 3 things. If you give me this, I'll bring this coverage and this press. It will help benefit Vice. And they said, deal. When I wasn't getting what I wanted, I had a meeting. I said, guys, you have yet to deliver on these things. And we'll get it for you. We'll get it for you. Give me more money. 3 times. And then a 3rd time I said, you're fired. Our arrangement is done. I don't need you. And boy, were they shocked when at the last minute I jumped ship and then went somewhere else. But that's the point, man. Journalists who don't want you to do journalism, it was the beginning. And I saw the signs. And I've mentioned this. It looked like this is what was coming. Same thing was true with Fusion. I thought at least there I'd have different contractual guarantees and I have my own budget. But it is what it is. Christina Buttons tweets, former Harvard president Claudine Gay has been accused of over 50 instances of plagiarism throughout her career, some of which have been confirmed by left-leaning sources. Despite this, progressives have flooded X with posts gaslighting the public by suggesting her resignation is due to racism, white supremacy, anti-blackness. This is how critical social justice activists sustain their ideology and enforce universal adoption of DEI. Take a look at these posts. These are hilarious. Who cares? Well, if they got what they wanted from their well-executed plan, says Ida Bay Wells, thinking of her and her black academics placed in impossible positions. The next president of the university must be a black woman, says Mark Lamont Hill. These people are psychotic and they're evil. Here's one. Rage at what these racists did to Claudine Gay. Couldn't even keep a black woman as president for 1 year without harassing and stalking her out. They have the most unbelievable, horrific white men at the highest levels of leadership, but black women, of course not. Rufo said, please show me a white male university president who plagiarized 40 plus passages across 7 papers and kept his job. I'll wait. It's really amazing where we are, isn't it? In a resignation letter, Claudine Gay, disgraced former president of Harvard, blamed racism. I would expect nothing less from a diversity hire. DEI is poison. It must be eradicated from our institutions. It is. Here you go. Part of what she wrote. It is a singular honor to be a member of this university, which has been my home and my inspiration for most of my professional career. My deep sense of connection to Harvard and its people has made it all the more painful to witness the tensions and divisions that have riven our community in recent months, weakening the bonds of trust and reciprocity that should be sources of strength and support, blah, blah, blah. Amidst all of this, it has been distressing to have doubt cast on my commitments to confronting hate and upholding scholarly rigor. 2 bedrock values that are fundamental to who I am, and frightening to be subjected to personal attacks and threats fueled by racial animus. It's the only thing they have. The only thing they have to say is, yeah, but you're racist. Nobody cares anymore. You have beaten that horse to death and then beaten the dead horse into a fine paste to the point where nobody even knows what you're beating. It's funny. It's like, hey, you're beating a dead horse. Now there's just a pile of mush on the ground and you're like, honestly, I have no idea what you're doing. Yeah, you're fired. That's where we are. They were calling. This is really funny. They tried to get her to resign and she was refusing. That's the crazy thing. Larry Elder. Larry Elder steps up to the plate to point out the hypocrisy, the lies, and the cult. Please share this stuff. It has been distressing and frightening to be subjected to personal racial animus, she says. Larry Elder says, is being called the black face of white supremacy an example of personal attacks fueled by a racial animus? Asking for a friend. They have these posts where they're like, they're trying to take black people from positions of power. When Larry Elder was running for governor and was favored heavily by conservatives, the left attacked him on racial grounds. Racist, vile attacks against him. The funny thing is, they say all these people want to take black people from people of power. The conservative view of the Supreme Court, the ideal version, is just 9 Clarence Thomases. That's the meme. It's like left accuses conservatives of racism, conservatives dream, and it's the Supreme Court is all just Clarence Thomas. Conservatives don't care that Clarence Thomas is a black man. They care that he's a good man. It's fascinating, isn't it? Clarence Thomas is based, he's intelligent, he's smart, and I don't care what his race is. The left does. They hate him for it because they are racists. It's funny as we look to the future and we fear the potential looming civil war. And I think to myself, it's kind of funny that it's Democrats once again fomenting conflict and chaos through corrupt activities and racist ideology. But now they're saying, yeah, but that wasn't real Democrats. I'm not kidding. When you look back at the Confederates, the Democrats, and you rightly point out that they had much the same ideology of racial separation, the Democrats go, no, the party switched. Those weren't real Democrats. It's like no matter what they do wrong, that wasn't real communism. We get it, dude. But we're not falling for it anymore. That doesn't mean, there's a lot of conservatives that are equally embracing ideological positions. We'll see what happens in 2024. It'll be an interesting time. Chris Rufer points out this post from Ibram Kendi. Kendi says, racist mobs won't stop until they topple all black people from positions of power and influence who are not reinforcing the structure of racism. There it is. It's an important qualifier. Because when we cheer for Clarence Thomas or Larry Elder, or Dave Chappelle, they say, yeah, but they're upholding racism. To be fair, Dave Chappelle made a joke about Asians. He said that his wife's Asian and he was trying to open her phone, but he couldn't figure out the password. And when he realized it had facial recognition, he just went, oh. It's like a Seamus joke. No, it's like a Dave Chappelle joke, and Seamus is emulating Dave Chappelle. Sorry, Seamus. And he's like, and it opened right away. You see, I am part Asian. And so I love it. I love it. I thought it was a fascinating joke. I thought it was hilarious. Not only am I Asian, but as many of you know, as a mixed race Asian person, I have no community. I have no Asian community or white community. I just have America. And so there's many people on the left, they try to avoid the subject. Tim Pool, they say he's a right-wing commentator. They don't want to talk about the fact that I come from a family, second-generation mixed race that fought for civil rights. How about that? And people on the right will make the joke when I bring it up. But I want you all to understand the importance. And for all the memes, I really don't bring it up all that often, but it's important to point out. My family fought through civil rights and for civil rights. And as someone who has no racial community, I actually had white nationalists literally say this. It's like 6 years ago. They said Tim Pool's ideology can be explained simply by the fact that he has no racial community. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. Because they were saying that they have white collectivism and they understand white collectivism. And I don't. And I'm like, yes, you are correct. There is no place I go except the American community. And that's why I love this country and its values. And that's why we must defend it. Because when I look to the right, what do I see? I see a bunch of conservatives and they're like, man, I sure do love that Clarence Thomas. He's got amazing ideas. And I'm like, they really don't care that he's a black man. And that feels safe. That makes me feel good. I look to the left and they're complaining about race, demanding racial segregation. And I'm like, I tell you this, my friends, I know what happens to me if I go to the left because I've been there. They attack me for my race. They reignite the conflicts of civil rights and slavery on purpose to cause pain and attack my values because they're racists. I saw it at Occupy Wall Street. And I know what happens when I go to the right. They say, Tim, your idea is stupid. And I laugh and I go, maybe. But they don't tell me anything about my race as an issue. I can have I can have Matt Walsh go on his show and say, I think Tim Pool is wrong about what he said about Bud Light. And you know what Matt Walsh doesn't do? Tim Pool's Asian. And I'm like, okay. I can appreciate you telling me my ideas are bad. Absolutely, because that's what I hope you do. And I can appreciate you telling me my ideas are good because I more so hope you do that. But you and I, we all know what the left would do. They don't care about your ideas. They don't care if you're a plagiarist, a liar, a cheater, or a thief. They don't care if you're a good person. Larry Elder, they attack him for his race. Claudine Gay, they defend her because of her race. These people are evil. This is where we are today. So take a look at what they write in the AP. Revel in it. Because we're winning. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.